Good evening. Welcome back to another Lord of the Rings LCG video. And tonight we're going to be doing a tier list for all of the heroes in Lord of the Rings LCG. All of the heroes that are available for purchase. And I will also give a buying guide, an opinion on which heroes are good to buy depending on what you want to accomplish. I have two categories basically. This top category, S, A, B, C, and F, are assuming you are not playing progression mode. Progression mode is when you play a quest using only the cards that were available at the time of the quest's release. So if you were playing the core quests in progression mode, you would use only the core set cards. If you were playing a Hunt for Gollum, the Hunt for Gollum, which was the first adventure pack, you would play that in progression mode using only the core set and the Hunt for Gollum cards. If you're playing in normal mode, then you're using any cards that are available, regardless with whether they were available when the quest was released or not. So, I will give my opinions and buying guide for the heroes depending on which mode you play in primarily and what you're trying to accomplish in the game. Some of you no doubt will be interested in only elite heroes that you can play with your friends. You don't care about progression mode, you don't have a lot of money that you want to spend on the game, and you just want the best heroes that you can use to make a good deck to contribute to your party's success. Some of you will be looking to play in the progression mode, and some of you will be looking just to play for fun and you don't particularly care if you have the strongest heroes or not, as long as they're fun to play and are capable of carrying some weight, even if they may not be elite. Oftentimes in games, fun compensates for a hero not necessarily being the best, as long as it's not awful. So I'll give my opinions on each hero and rank them relative to objective standards, I suppose, and this is only an opinion. Everyone will find something to disagree with in this video and hopefully something to agree with. These are based on my experiences alone, and I probably will not read the comments for this one, but we'll see. In any case, hopefully it will be entertaining, at least, if not helpful in some way. So we're just going to proceed in alphabetical order, starting with Amarthael, pictured here. He is a Dunedain hero, and in my opinion he is a lot of fun to play. The Dunedain deck relies on being engaged with enemies in order to take full advantage of the cards. Amarthael, when he's engaged with at least 2 enemies, adds 1 additional resource. So you get some resource generation and an additional icon. His stats are not bad. This card, in my opinion, is going in the A tier. He is good enough to be good outside of progression mode. He's not elite because of the inconsistency of trying to engage enemies before you take full use, before you can make full use of his abilities. But he is so much fun, and he can defeat some pretty difficult quests. You know, I think he deserves 1 lower. He beats some hard quests. He's not going to beat a lot of hard quests. I would say a hero belongs a tier higher if he can't quite get over the hump for the hardest quest, but still beats some pretty hard ones, and I'm just not sure Amarthael is quite there. Now that I think about it, I like the card a lot, but I wouldn't want anybody to buy him and then be kind of disappointed by what he can do. You know, so he's gonna be fun. I'll say that. He's a lot of fun to play. The Dunedain deck is a lot of fun to play because it's very combat focused. But he's going to fall short against difficult quests for sure, in my experience. It's possible to make a deck that can beat some very difficult quests if it's a very combat focused quest. but not a lot of them. Not a lot of them. So, next up we have Core Aragorn. A very, very good hero in progression mode. Basically, if you're playing the core quests in progression mode, he is very good. But he falls off very quickly after that. I don't know that I used him that much in my progression series. Maybe one or two quests. He doesn't deserve a B. Not useful that often. He's more useful than that. So I'd put him in at an A in progression mode. If you're looking back and you're not playing in progression mode, I would not say this card is useful. However, everyone's going to have it because everybody's got a core set, right? So there's not too much point in talking about whether you should buy core set Aragorn or not. You're going to have him. This question of where he ranks is really pretty academic. I'll give him an A in progression mode and not worth mentioning otherwise. Lore Aragorn. Lore Aragorn I loved in progression mode. I did not find him very useful after a point. I would give him a B. I found him, you could make a case for B+, maybe A-. He was very, very good against a few quests in progression mode. Then he fell out of favor relatively quickly, and I never really thought about him again. I rank him slightly worse than core set Aragorn, because core set Aragorn was vital to defeating Escape from Dol Guldur in progression mode, which is one of the hardest progression mode quests in the game. I think I used Lore Aragorn maybe against Watcher in the Water, I'm not sure. Nothing extremely difficult. And then he fell out of favor kind of quickly. I know he was relatively beloved. However, if you're not playing in progression mode and you're thinking about buying Lore Aragorn and expecting him to defeat the hardest quests in the game, it's possible. I haven't seen it, and I didn't even think about using him to do it in my series, but I have not seen him in any of the one decks, the decks that players have built to beat every quest in the game. Haven't really even seen him mentioned in that conversation, so I don't think he's that good outside of progression mode. I wouldn't go out of my way to buy him if you're looking to make elite decks. So I'm ranking him as a B in progression mode, but not much else. You'll find him useful against a few quests in progression mode, but that's about it. Tactics Aragorn. Well, I never used him. Each enemy engaged with you gets -1 shields. After he participates in an attack that destroys an enemy, choose an enemy not engaged with you and engage that enemy. I did not find this card good. I did not see anything particularly appealing about playing him. So it's a debate between just flat not good and fun but not beating much. Or maybe beats a few hard quests. I suppose you could make a case for him in the Dunedain deck. I suppose. I don't see much to like about him though, even in that deck. Each enemy engaged with you gets -1 shields. Well, let's put him in fun, but doesn't beat very many hard quests. I wouldn't put him high on your priority list of heroes to buy, even if you want to play the Amarthiel Dunedain deck. I don't consider Tactics Aragorn to be essential for that. He was released relatively late in the life cycle of the game, so I wouldn't say I found him useful at all in progression mode. I'd put him pretty low on your priority list for buying heroes if you're trying to make elite decks, or you're trying to play fun decks, or you're trying to play progression mode. I'd have this hero ranked pretty low. I could make a case for F. or even just not good. Just flat not good. Spirit Aragorn. Well, did not use him at all either. Exhaust Aragorn to choose a location in the staging area until the end of the phase. That location gets minus X threat, where X is Aragorn's willpower. If the effect reduces the location's willpower to 0, place 1 progress on it. I do not find that useful at all, frankly. And I would rank him at the lowest priority in terms of, you can think of this in terms of a buying priority, which champions to buy first depending on what you want to accomplish. We haven't seen an elite champion yet. We've seen a decent fun champion. If you're looking for fun decks, a Marthiel's going to rank decently, but the others are going to be pretty far down the list. They'd be pretty far down my list if I were buying all the stuff again. They'd be pretty far down my list, these champions we've seen so far, for buying order. Argalad. Another champion I never used. Exhaust Argalad to choose an enemy in the staging area until the end of the phase. That enemy gets minus X threat, where X is Argalad's attack. He's actually very similar to Spirit Aragorn, and I'm going to rank him the same. Even in a Sylvan deck, which is his synergy, I wouldn't play that card. That would be a waste of a hero in a Sylvan deck. I don't see much to like there. What about a Scout deck? I've never seen such a thing. I don't think it would be good. It's possible, I suppose. Yeah, I just don't see anything to like. You could call this not good category for collectors only, I guess. You could just add that. For collectors only. That's the only reason I would buy this champion, this hero, if I was a collector going for a full set. That's it. Otherwise, no, I don't see much there. Arwen, a fantastic champion. Fun to play. And I would call her very, very good. However, she was at one time elite prior to the release of Bonds of Friendship. She was in the one deck that C-Stan made that beat all of the quests up to, I believe, the Mumakil adventure pack. That deck is outdated now as more adventure packs have been released, and as far as I know, the one deck has not been played against them, or at least if it has been, the results haven't been posted in an article or anything like that that I've seen. You could make a real case for her to be elite, but I'm putting her at fun / will beat many hard quests because she is very, very good, but I don't think at this time she has a place in a deck that is capable of beating all of the quests in the game. I would put her pretty high on my buying list for if I were buying elite champions. She's certainly got use outside of progression mode. She's elite in progression mode. But outside of that, I give her an A. She's fun. She beats a lot of hard quests. She's not quite elite, in my opinion. Balin. He is not good. Pay 1 resource from Balin's resource pool to cancel a shadow effect just triggered during an attack. Well, then that would be good if you just stopped right there. Then deal the attacking enemy another shadow card. I never used this champion. Even in a dwarf deck, I don't think I would, because he's out of the leadership role, and if you're playing a dwarf deck, you want to play Dying Ironfoot. Or maybe Thorin Oakenshield. I don't see reason why you'd play Balin at all, unless you wanted to play Monosphere Dwarf deck. I would rank him as not good. I mean, potentially a Monosphere Lore Dwarf deck could, or Monosphere Leadership Dwarf deck could be fun, but really wouldn't beat much. I'm not sure I'm going to make much use of this category. We'll see. We'll see, but Balin I would rank pretty low. I mean, I enjoyed playing dwarves. Maybe I'll put him in fun, but not beating much. I enjoyed playing dwarves. I could see a Monosphere Leadership Dwarf deck being fun to play. I don't think it would beat much, though. So, Balin, a low priority on the buying list. Bard, Son of Brand. I found the Dale deck pretty fun to play. Pretty fun to play and useful against some hard quests. So for me, he belongs here next to a Marthiel. If I were trying to decide between playing Dunedain or Dale, I would choose Dale. I think Dale's stronger than Dunedain. But they're about equally fun. I had about equal amounts of fun playing them. I don't think Dale is elite. But I think Amarthiel and Bard, Son of Brand belong in the same category. Dale's fun. Could use a little more development. Maybe the folks at a long extended party will develop Dale a little bit more in the life after the official life of the game. And we'll see Dale really come into its own as an elite deck. I think it's got a lot of potential. I found it a little bit too inconsistent to be elite, but I really enjoyed playing it, so I'm comfortable with Bard being ranked with Amarthiel. Bard the Bowman. You know, I probably need another category which is good in multiplayer only. I play all solo. That's the name of my channel. So, Bard the Bowman is not good in solo. Because when he makes a ranged attack, the enemy he attacks gets -2 shields until the end of the phase. Don't make any ranged attacks in solo play. Therefore, I would rank him as not good for collectors only in solo. However, in multiplayer, he seems pretty good for a tactics player in multiplayer. He seems okay in multiplayer. I don't know if he's elite, but he seems okay in multiplayer. So let's add another tier. So this new tier is multiplayer focused, bad in solo, and that seems to fit Bard pretty well. And as to how good Bard is in multiplayer, I can't really say, having not played much multiplayer, but he's bad in solo. I can say that for sure. Bjorn, one of my absolute favorite champions in progression mode. He has since fallen out of favor, but he was phenomenal for a time until enemies started taking more than 5 attack to beat. I loved Bjorn and used him often. He fits perfectly in my mind in the S tier for progression mode only. I have not used him much for quite a while, but absolutely loved him and found him very, very strong at the time, around the time of his release. Used him with Land Revolve from time to time. Yeah, I think he fits there. Elite in progression mode, but not terribly useful otherwise. Barivor. Barivor is a hero that I do not like at all. However, he is an elite hero. There's not much doubt about that in my mind. He is a very, very strong hero. He came out in the core set. His card draw has never really been equaled in a hero. Definitely elite, even though I personally don't like him. I don't really know why. I don't have a reason. It's not based on how good he is. He's very, very good. Or wait, is it she? No, I think that's a he. In any case, oh, it is her. Sorry about that. She is very, very good. Not one of my favorites, but definitely an elite hero. You will see her in some 1 decks. In the core set, though, so kind of an irrelevant debate about where she belongs. Because you're going to get her when you get the core set. Tactics Baragon. This champion is amazing. His 4 defense is the highest in the game. He is, in my opinion, an essential card for a 1 deck. A really, really good card against the hardest quests in the game. I would put him very high on my list of heroes to buy. He is very, very strong with that 4 defense and the ability to lower the cost of weapons and armor attachments. Now, there's another version of him, Spirit Baragon, which is also S tier elite. Which one is better? They're both really, really good. After Baragon defends an attack and takes no damage, reduce the defending player's threat by 1. Would you rather have threat reduction or would you rather have cost reduction? Well, threat reduction provides additional defense. I consider threat reduction to be a defensive stat. And so Baragon is even stronger defensively than Tactics Baragon. However, he's a little slower because you have to pay for weapons and attachments on him. So which one would you use? It depends on whether you want a Tactics hero or a Spirit hero. Depends pretty much exclusively on that. Whichever one of those you need more is the one that I would use. They are both exceptional. If you can only get one, gun to my head, which one would I choose? Well, I think the set that Tactics Baragon comes in is a little easier to come by than Flame of the West, right? Not 100% sure about it, but that's what I'd guess. So I guess Tactics Baragon's probably the easier one to get your hands on, and they're pretty much roughly equivalent in terms of their power level. I like both of them a lot. They're both really, really, really good. Biffer. Well, I used him in progression mode once when the dwarves were first released. So I'm going to say sometimes useful in progression mode. He's probably a little bit less important than... well, I think he came in, what set? Was it Khazad-dûm? And if I wanted to play an all-dwarf hero deck, I think I needed him at that time because there wasn't any other lore dwarf hero, so... He fits in progression mode, and he was useful for a couple of quests, but he got replaced as soon as I could. I think I used him about the same amount of time as Spirit Aragorn, though I'd consider, or Lore Aragorn, though I'd consider Lore Aragorn the better champion. So they don't really belong in the same tier together. But he does belong a little bit above not good for collectors only, because I did use him once or twice and did find him useful. So maybe I need another tier below Lore Aragorn, but I don't know. If I find multiple champions that I need that tier for, I'll make it. As it is, I'd give him a low priority, but if you're buying the Khazad-dûm expansion for dwarf deck, a progression style dwarf deck, then you're getting this card anyway, so yeah. Otherwise, he's not elite or anything. He's okay in a progression style dwarf deck. I used him a couple of times and then replaced him as soon as I could. Bilbo Baggins, a hero I used once or twice in progression mode, and I liked him a lot. I think I do need another tier, because he's probably worse than Spirit Aragorn too. Okay, so we're going to put Biffer down there. I'm going to put Bilbo Baggins there. I used him once or twice, but then almost immediately ran into a problem where he's only got 2 health. And you run into a quest, I think it's maybe Conflict at the Carrick, which deals 2 damage, and then Bilbo just dies, and then you're sad. Could even happen turn 1. I think it happened turn 1 to me. Where I was like, wow, this card is amazing because it passively draws an additional card. I like him even better than Barivor. But then turn 1 dead. And I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. Well, I did use him once, so he gets a tier above F, but probably used him about as much as Biffer, and then off he went due to being rather weak in the health department. It's a shame. Tactics version of Bilbo Baggins. Don't think I ever used this card. After Bilbo Baggins commits to the quest, choose an enemy in the staging area. Until the end of the phase, Bilbo Baggins gets plus X willpower, where X is that enemy's threat. If the player's quest successfully, deal 1 damage to that enemy, 2 instead if it's guarding a card. Talk about your niche heroes. So when he's questing on an empty board, which is almost always what you want, right? You don't want to really leave enemies in the staging area too much. Something's gone wrong if you're leaving enemies in the staging area very often in an elite deck. So if everything's going well, Bilbo's only going to contribute 1 willpower or 2 defense, but with only 2 health, you're not going to want him to take an attack. If you're forced to have an enemy in the staging area with high willpower every round and you want access to the tactics sphere, I suppose then you could use Tactics Bilbo. For me personally though, I would consider this card for collectors only. Or maybe since he applies to fun cards, which the concept of the guarded cards was something I never got behind. Though I like the concept, so I suppose you could use Bilbo in that deck, and it would be fun, just don't count on beating anything with it. So I'd put him pretty low on your buying list. You could make an argument for this card just not being good, but I can imagine him being fun to play, because I like the character. I like the art. I like the kind of spirit of the card, I suppose, like a real burglar version of Bilbo. However, he's hard to take advantage of. Just not all that good, in my opinion. Bomber. Yeah. No, I don't think so. I suppose he could be fun. When counting the number of dwarf characters you control, Bomber counts as 2. And there are some cards that take advantage of having a bunch of dwarves on the table. Maybe like a Bonds of Friendship dwarf deck or something, I don't know. Just trying to imagine a use for this card. The concept is goofy, could be kind of fun. You're not going to beat much with it. He's going in with the other dwarf. Don't count on him doing much if you buy him. Fun, but he's not going to do much. I don't think I ever used him. Boromir, an amazing card in progression mode. Loved this card. At the time that he was released, he didn't used to say limit once per phase. And if he still didn't say limit once per phase, he'd probably just flat out be an elite champion. Because that ability, raising your threat to ready him, was insanely good when you didn't have to be limited to once per phase. Now that he's been errated, and he is limited to once per phase, I still found him very useful in progression mode. Very, very good in some quests in progression mode, but falls off later. So I have him ranked as elite in progression mode, but falls off later. I wouldn't buy him if you're not playing progression mode and expect him to be a player in an elite deck. It's possible. but I wouldn't count on it. However, in progression mode, he was amazing. For a time. Leadership Boromir. The Gondor Swarm deck is something I really liked in theory. It could never match the power of the Outland Swarm deck. So I would have Leadership Boromir ranked as B. Same tier as Amarthiel or Bran, Son of Bane. It's a lot of fun, the Gondor Swarm deck. And it can beat a few hard quests, but I wouldn't count on anything more than that from Leadership Boromir. In the long extended party series of quests, Gondor did get some help. If you're counting on printing those cards up, you may be able to elevate Leadership Boromir a tier. In fact, you probably can if you're counting on printing those cards up. I haven't really tried that deck yet, but in theory I think it's pretty good. So fun, can beat some hard quests with access to all the cards. At the time of his release in progression mode, he's probably a tier lower than this. But now I'd rank him the same with Amarthiel or Dale, the Dale deck, Bran, Son of Bane. Gondor, roughly in the same tier. Kind of beat a hard quest here or there. Not too consistent though, and certainly not elite. Bran, Son of Bane, another version. After Bran, Son of Bane attacks and defeats an enemy engaged with another player, choose and ready one of that player's characters. He is ranged. That is not easy to set up and pull off. I don't even think he's a multiplayer focused champion. I think he's just not good. Don't think I'd even play him in a multiplayer deck. Maybe if I was playing like all tactics and I wanted him with Bard. Even then, I don't know. After he attacks and defeats an enemy engaged with another player, then he grants action advantage. That's just not going to happen that often, I don't think. Maybe when you're playing 4-player, you get him off sometimes, but nah, I just wouldn't put a very high priority on buying that champion. Even for multiplayer. I don't think he's good. Bran, Son of Bane. I got confused for a second by the Bran, Son of Bane, Bard, Son of Brand, and Bard the Bowman. All different cards. Bran, Son of Bane, I would rank the same as Bard, Son of Brand. They are pretty important to have in the Dale deck, and that deck is a lot of fun. But it's not an elite deck. It needs a little help to get to elite. Because it takes a bit to get rolling, and in solo play that's not good. But Dale's a lot of fun. To me, it's the most fun of the three that I have here. Dunedain, Dale, and Gondor. Probably rank Dale first, Dunedain second, Gondor third. Not an elite deck though. Wouldn't buy Dale cards and expect you're going to beat Mount Doom, for example, or Battle for Cairn Doom. But Dale is fun, no doubt about that, to me at least. Caldara. When I first saw this champion, I thought it was garbage. There was a deck that took advantage of Caldara quite a bit before an errata ruined that. Even so, you can build a fairly strong deck around Caldara. I was never able to get it to work that well. But I enjoyed playing it, and I do think it's capable of beating some elite decks. I'm going to rank her the same as Gondor or Dale or Dunedain, though you could make a case for kind of a C plus type of thing too with Tactics Aragorn. Though I think this card is more important to the deck. than Tactics Aragorn is. So I think it belongs. I had in B tier. I had fun with it, same as I had fun with Dale, Gondor, or Dunedain. I didn't find it elite. There might be some players that disagree. I've seen decks that say they've beat a lot of really difficult quests, so it could possibly go like B plus, A minus. But for me, it belongs in B. I was just never able to get it to work that well. Perhaps it just didn't fit my playstyle. So I have it in B. Celeborn. Loved the Sylvan deck, and I found it quite powerful at the time. I would rank this champion S in Elite, possibly even A normally. Elite in progression mode. He did fall off over time, the Sylvan deck did. I don't think it's Elite. I don't really think he has a place outside of his synergy, the Sylvan synergy. But I really loved that card in progression mode, and I found it a lot of fun. I might even rank it as an A along with Arwen. Rank Celeborn as an A. I enjoyed playing Celeborn quite a bit. So I'd rank it as Elite in progression and possibly even A normally. A very fun card and a very strong card at the time, but not an elite card. Círdan the Shipwright. Very, very strong card. Draw one additional card at the beginning of the resource phase. After drawing cards at the beginning, choose and discard one. So you get to draw 2 and discard 1, and he has 4 willpower. He's very, very strong. I have him ranked as a very fun champion and beats many hard quests. I don't think he's elite, as I haven't seen him in a 1 deck, nor do I consider him strong enough to play a role in a 1 deck or a deck that beats a ton of nightmare quests. But I do think he's very, very strong, equivalent to Arwen, and a lot of fun to play. And I'd have him at a higher priority buy, as a higher priority buy than Amarthiel or Brand or Boromir or Caldera. I enjoyed playing that card quite a bit, and I think he's very good with the 4 willpower. I think only Arwen can match that. Diane Ironfoot, definitely a S tier card in progression mode. There was a time when dwarves ruled the world, and then they fell off because they're kind of weak early. I never even liked dwarves that much, to be honest, in solo, but in multiplayer they're absolutely incredible. I'd still rank him as S in progression mode. I think he's a little bit more multiplayer focused than solo, but I did play him in a few quests. So there's an argument to be made for A tier if you're talking exclusively about solo. I think if you buy him in solo progression mode and you expect him to be mighty, you're going to be a little underwhelmed, because I was. So I don't think he's S tier in solo progression mode, but I do think he's S tier in multiplayer progression mode. So if you're buying Diane for multiplayer progression mode, I'd move him up a tier to Elite. If no one else in your group is playing and you're in the Casa Doom era, you're gonna want Diane, I think, for sure. But otherwise, for solo play, you could rank him as an A, maybe even a B. I might even drop him as far as B in solo play. I just found dwarves underwhelming, and I didn't use them that much before I switched away from them. I did use them a little, maybe like an A minus, B plus. It really depends, but I did not think he was that good in solo play. Just because you have to keep him ready, and that kind of makes you down one hero all the time. or a lot of the time, and dwarves are kind of slow to get rolling in solo play. You need a bunch of them on the table to fully take advantage of his ability, and that doesn't happen turn 1. So I'd have him as a A-B+ type champion in solo play only. But in multiplayer, definitely he belongs in S tier progression mode. Then he fell off over time, and I didn't really use him much anymore. So just to avoid anybody being disappointed expecting him to be really powerful in solo play if you buy him, I'm going to put him as a B. Spirit version of Dian Ironfoot, a card I liked in theory. I never played him. While Dian is defending, he gains discard the top card of your deck to give Dian +1 shields for this attack 3 times per phase. Well, you could buff him up to 6 shields without any helping cards. That's really strong, but the cost of discarding the top card of your deck is going to be really sad if you discard something really important. I'm not sure how to rank this hero, since I never played him. I'm really not sure how to rank this hero. I never used him in progression mode. I could see him having value. Yeah, I really don't know. Is there a category for I don't know? Well, let's just put him there. Fun beats a few hard quests, that's probably true. But if you really like this character, my apologies, I just don't have much experience with him. It's hard to evaluate his ability. I don't really like cards that discard your own cards as a cost. There are cards that can take advantage of that, though. So I think he's pretty niche. He's got reasonable defense stats and the ability to buff those up even further. Probably needs a Will of the West if you want to use his defensive buff a lot to recycle your discards. So I'm going to rank him with Tactics Aragorn, but I wouldn't be too surprised to see him do something cool. Hard to say. Just taking a quick search to see what decks included him. Didn't see anything I thought was really amazing. Yeah. Could be a supporting hero, I don't know, in a all Monosphere Spirit deck with Caldera. Yeah, I think he's appropriately ranked in all likelihood with Tactics Aragorn there. Not too sure about that one though. Damrod. I loved this champion when he first came out. I'd put him the trap deck in the fun beats some hard quest category. I think maybe I used him once or twice in progression mode. Found him very enjoyable to play, not all that powerful. Not as powerful as I thought he would be at first glance. Did find him a lot of fun though. He should be included in any deck that runs traps for sure. Provides cost reduction and card draw. Traps deck isn't all that good. It faces the problem that a lot of combo decks have. You'll note all of these champions that I've got in this fun beats some hard quest category. They all require combinations of cards to work, and in solo play that just doesn't work that well. These champions that are up higher are instantly functional without any additional cards. High stats, resource, or Arwen provides card draw, resource generation. Discard a card to add 1 resource or to Aragorn's resource pool. So she provides card draw with Elven Light. Well, sort of. But in this case, these guys are fun, but have kind of weaker stats and need combinations of cards to work real well. And therefore, they deserve lower buying priority than Círdan, Arwen, Boromir, Baragond. Unless your priority is mainly fun and you don't care so much about beating the hardest quests in the game, then you probably just want to pick your favorite synergy. Mine personally is Dale. You can make a pretty good case for Dunedain as well. Gondor, Kaldara, maybe less so for me. Damrod Traps deck I enjoyed. And it's possible to beat, I think, Cairn Doom with that deck in progression mode. So pretty strong and fun, but definitely I don't think deserves to go any higher than that. Denethor, the core version of him. I think maybe I saw him used once in my decks in progression mode. He's always going to kind of have a niche. You can exhaust him to look at the top card of the encounter deck every round, and he's got 3 defense. So he is kind of fun to play. He does beat some hard quests. Maybe not all that useful outside of progression mode, so probably I put him like as a C, occasionally useful in progression mode. He's a core hero though. Core set hero, so I'm not going to spend as much time on him because it just doesn't matter that much, since you're probably going to have him in any case. But you could maybe rank him as a C in either tier. He is a little useful outside of progression mode, but not much. I don't think I used him outside of that, and I maybe liked him once. Leadership Denethor. That is an S tier champion. Very, very, very strong with the additional 2 resources turn 1. The ability to move 1 resource from his pool to another Gondor hero's resource pool can have limited applicability, but the ability to start with 2 resources is what sets him apart. It gives you access to Steward of Gondor. He was a very good card for me in some very, very strong decks, and he still is a candidate for a hero in any elite deck. This is a very, very good hero. No doubt about that in my mind. I would give him as high a priority as Baragond or Boromir. Dory. Well, after another hero is declared as a defender, exhaust Dory to add his shields to the defending hero's shields for this attack. You have to exhaust him to give 2 shields to another hero. I do not think that is good. I would rank him as 4 collectors only. I cannot see a reason why I would ever advise anyone. That was the wrong card there. Cannot see a reason why I'd ever advise anyone to buy this champion, even for a fun dwarves deck. I don't think he is good. His stats are weak, and his ability is meh. So, no thank you. Not even that much fun to play, in my estimation. Dunhere. Dunhere's an interesting card. He's a card I wanted to like quite a lot. He's not easy to set up. He needs some combos. I saw a deck or 2 that I really liked with him, but I just don't think it's that strong. He is fun. There's no doubt about that. He's just not going to be a pivotal player in a deck that beats a lot of hard quests. So I think he goes along with Dain and Tactics Aragorn. He is a core hero though, so you get him anyway. Not too much point in saying much else about him. Dwalin. Dwalin I used for the Khazad-dûm expansion because I kind of had to. So I'd rank him along with Bifur. I dropped him as soon as I could. After he attacks and destroys an orc enemy, lower your threat by 2. His stats aren't very good. He really needs dying. Even with dying, his stats aren't anything exceptional. But I dropped him as soon as there was another hero available, so I used him occasionally in progression mode, but not otherwise. Eleanor, maybe I used her once. I'm not sure. I'd say she's fun, but not beating much. She might have been useful in like maybe one hard quest, I don't know. This is talking about solo play. Maybe she's different in multiplayer, I don't know. But you can't really get away with a champion with stats that are that weak in solo play. 1, 1, 2, 3, that's terrible. Even with the low threat, she's not strong enough to do much in solo play, and so I didn't really use her much. She's a core set hero, and you do get her for free if you buy the core set. Elfhelm. What an interesting hero he was. He seemed like fun in a mount deck. I don't think he is that good. If you could get 2 mounts on the table, a spirit hero and a leadership or tactics or whatever, he'd be good. So I didn't use him much. But he could be usable in a deck that's capable of beating something difficult. And he's fun. He seemed fun to me. He was fun when I tried him. But I don't think he's that good. I think he belongs along with something like Done Here. Yeah. I'm comfortable with that. I'd like him to be better. I'd like him to, but 2/2/2 is not good on turn 1, and therefore not very good in solo play without some kind of benefit that you can utilize, or some kind of ability to ramp up faster into the late game, or ramp up stronger into the late game, I should say. So I think he belongs there. Eladan and Elro here really need to be talked about together since they play off of each other. Definitely fun. I did not find them too good against too many hard quests, except for one. I think there was a 3 Hunters deck that featured the twins and was pretty good. And that alone might be enough to elevate them out of the C tier. But I'm going to have them ranked as occasionally useful in progression mode, but not really otherwise. I think I used them in 2 or 3 quests, if that. And I wanted to like them a lot. They are fun. So maybe they deserve a place in the fun category. But just not that powerful. They do beat 1 or 2 hard quests, though. They have niche use in 1 or 2 hard quests. And I believe I used them for that, but not really otherwise. I wanted to like them more than I did. You do have to buy 2 separate adventure packs to get them both. It's a bit annoying. So I wouldn't put a high priority on them. Just looking at some decks that feature them to see if I could find the 3 Hunters one, but no luck there. Elrond, definitely elite. Even at the end of the game, the end of all things, he is still amazing with Vilya. He has to be talked about with Vilya. He's nothing special without Vilya, but with Vilya, he is still elite, still capable of being the guy in a deck that's capable of beating every quest on hard mode in the game and solo play. So I might even put him. You get Barivore for free. If I were ranking these champions in S tier, I'd probably put him first of any of the champions we've seen. I'd put Elrond as the most powerful. The guy, if you're playing in a multiplayer group and no one's running Elrond, and your goal is just win, get him, you won't be sad. Get him, build a Vilya deck, and you will not be sad. really ever, throughout the life of the game, you won't be sad in his power. He's very, very, very powerful. Eomer, Tactics Eomer. I didn't find him terribly useful. I did see him featured in a couple of decks that could maybe do something. Maybe. I like the idea behind him. After a character leaves play, Eomer gets +2. Rohan allies are kind of designed to do that. It's a hard combo to set up, though. So I wanted to like the card more than I did. He could be fun, though, and I really like the character in the books. I'd put him about the same as the twins. It's not a synergy I'd focus on if you can only really afford to get 1 or 2, or you're only really willing to get 1 or 2 synergies. I wouldn't focus on the Rohan one that makes use of Tactics Eomer. I think there's other versions of Rohan that are more interesting or better. And I like the idea of Eomer, a very combat-focused Eomer, more than I like the way it actually plays, which I wasn't really able to make it work. But I love the character in the books and the movies. So I'm rating him not terribly high on the buying list, but potentially fun to play. Leadership Eomer. After Eomer commits to the quest, spend 1 resource from his resource pool to declare him as an attacker and resolve his attack against an enemy in the staging area. Kind of reminds me a bit of Done here. There are some niche quests where he could be pretty useful, combined with Done here to do some pretty funny things. It's just not going to be too many quests where that's true. So I have him kind of the same as Tactics Eomer. Fun, but I wouldn't put him up super high on the buying list if you're only going to be buying a limited number of the heroes. Fun, but not that good, is my experience with Leadership Boromir. But every now and then you'll find a quest that really suits his talents well, and he can really do some funny things against it. I don't know if it's worth buying him just for that, though. Eowyn, Core Eowyn, exceptional in progression style play. Falls out of favor later in favor of the Tactics version of her, which is unequivocally better in my mind, but in her time she was amazing. Definitely elite in progression mode, and you get her for free. If you're buying the core set, you're gonna be playing her for a long time. Definitely should be included in any serious core set deck, unless somebody else in your party's already playing her. Tactics Eowyn. Absolutely amazing champion. In the running for best champion in the game, I'd rank her just behind Elrond with Vilya. You could even make a case for her being better than Elrond with Vilya, power level wise, just because she makes it into more decks, being more self-sufficient. Elrond and Vilya are kind of slow to get rolling, but Eowyn, you could put her in nearly any deck, and she is really, really, really strong. Probably, at least of the heroes we've reviewed so far, the best hero in the game. I think I would rank her higher than Elrond. From the Flame of the West box, she is incredibly good, incredibly strong, and definitely has a place in any elite deck. With the 4 willpower and the ability to take out 2 enemies that require 10 attack to reduce your threat by 3 until you need her ability. She's just incredible at every level. meta changing when this champion was released, when this hero was released. I'd put her first on my list of heroes you're going to want in terms of her power. Aristor. I used him a lot in my Gondor Swarm deck, and I found him very, very powerful. But I don't think he has a place in a 1 deck. It's possible he does, and that deck just hasn't been discovered or hasn't been seen yet. But I'm going to rank him in fun, beats many hard quests as I did with him. And so I'd put him probably higher on the buying list for me than any of the other heroes in this tier. But I would not put him as elite, even though I did beat a lot of quests, including very hard quests with him. I beat Mount Doom with him. I beat, I think, the Battle for Cairn Doom with him, I'm not sure. Some really, really hard quests in solo play I beat with my Outland Swarm deck featuring Aristor. And that deck's not possible without him, so... But I don't think he's going to beat every... I think once Bonds of Fellowship came out, he got a little bit outdated. Even so, he's very, very strong in something like Outland Swarm or potentially Gondor Swarm. Very, very strong. So where we're at now, there are still 60 champions, heroes remaining, and therefore I think I will do that in part 2. So thanks for watching so far, and we'll see you in part 2.